Welcome to the Haddonfield Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror movie franchises. Today we're watching Halloween H20. I'm your host Mark, the horror movie fanboy.
And I'm Kennedy, the horror movie noob.
So, Kennedy, before we hop into talking about Halloween H20, do you want to give them a plot summary?
2 decades after surviving a massacre on October 31st, 1978, former babysitter Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, finds herself hunted by persistent night fielder Michael Myers. Laurie now lives in Northern California under an assumed name, where she works as a headmistress of a private school. But it's not far enough to escape Myers, who soon discovers her whereabouts. As Halloween descends upon Laurie's peaceful community, a feeling of dread weighs upon her.
So, Halloween H20. Halloween H20, which means 20 years later. Bad.
Not Halloween water.
So, your first time watching this movie, what did you think about it? What were your initial thoughts? And what were your thoughts after watching it this time?
So the very first time had to have been sometime in 2017. Very happy to see Laurie Strode come back, reprising her role. Even watching it today, we've been going through all these movies and Halloween 4, 5, and 6, not seeing Laurie being in the film, being featured, is a huge bummer. But always seeing this movie and knowing that Halloween 20 years later connects to 1 and 2 makes it the perfect headcanon for me. This is Halloween 20 years later for me ends like the perfect conclusion to the trilogy in my headcanon, at least, because I know Resurrection is technically a sequel. But in my headcanon,
The
it doesn't
trilogy
count,
of the
right?
night he came home.
Yeah. And I see a lot of horror YouTubers. So I know that this movie is definitely like on the more controversial side. A lot of people don't like it, but you know what? I like it. All right. So, I'm excited to explain why and to go through the movie.
For me, I can't actually tell you when I saw this movie first. I do know when I did see it, it was VHS, because one of my many times, because my grandmother owned the VHS of Halloween H20, and
Mm.
I'm actually one who ruined that VHS tape. Like, I watched it so many times that the tape, for those of you who are young enough,
Yeah.
who are too young, might not remember it or have any idea what the hell I'm talking about. But like, VHS had like a little tape that you could just like wind back. I was gonna compare it to a cassette tape, but they also wouldn't know what a cassette tape is, because.
Mm. Right.
But
Yeah.
I wore out that tape. Like, I watched the movie so many times. I think I've seen H20 more than I've seen any other horror, any other movie in the franchise. So for a long time, this was my favorite, but that was before I like took a deep dive in the entire franchise. But I did see this for the first time when I was a kid, and to be honest, my opinion of it has mostly stayed the same. Even when I was first watching it, I knew what a gimmick was, and that's exactly what Jamie Lee Curtis returning to the franchise was. Not that it was bad; it was really good. And then also, by the time I watched this, I was already a fan of Dawson's Creek. So seeing Michelle Williams, who plays I forgot her
Mm.
character's name, but she plays John's girlfriend. So there
Yeah.
were a lot of, and plus me having a mom who grew up in the '80s, I knew who LL Cool J was. So I was like, this has a lot of cool, interesting people. This seems good. And after watching it again, like down the line, and knowing that it connects directly to part 1 and 2, I was like, oh, makes me even like it even more, because 3, 4, 5, and 6 were three,
that wouldn't
four,
that wouldn't have been the direction I would have taken if I was like directing these movies.
yeah,
Right?
3 and 4 are good movies on their own. 5 is 5 is watchable. 6 is a mess. So them being like, yes, we're ignoring everything after 2. This is a direct sequel to 1 and 2. Keep on the Laurie Strode and Michael Myers sibling storyline. I was like, I
Yes.
I dig this. Trim the fat. Don't trim too much of the fat, like Halloween 2018. Trim just enough. So I was excited to come back. I was excited to enjoy it, to watch it. So has your opinion changed? So what are your opinions like overall about the movie?
I think having now seen Halloween 2018, and we're gonna talk about that movie so much more once we actually get to see it. But my opinions have changed drastically from coming out of the movie like, yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was the best sequel after the first one. But now I'm a much more of a sibling stan. I'm much more of a favorite of that added connection between Laurie
That's
and
because it gives
Michael.
it makes the it makes it make sense, basically, like at the basic level. And I'll talk about it more when we get to 2018. But for this one, like we literally watch him. He's doing everything he can to find Laura. We don't know what he's done in that 20 years in between, which is where I wish 2018 would have went in a way. Like show me, like it could have been like a nice like movie that was set in between, like I mean, like during that 20-year time period we didn't see
Hmm.
Michael, or Laurie was hiding.
Or it could have
You
been
know, we
Halloween 40 years later after this one. You know,
yeah, they
uh,
could have, well, they would have had to retcon the ending
that's
of
true.
H2O, which
But I'm sure
people
they
which
would. I'm
it
sure it
probably
would
would
have
have
been
been a
better.
better explanation than we got in the resurrection. But yeah, I'm with you. I support the sibling, but continue.
Yeah, and because like you were saying, it just makes so much more sense that Michael. It makes Michael less less of just like a random killing machine monster like most killers are, like Jason, and it makes everything he does have a motivation. Now I know some people don't like that motivation. I totally understand that, but I still appreciate that he has a goal. He has an objective. So to me, it makes him feel a little bit more cunning, a little bit more smart, rather than it's just a crazy guy walking down the street and he's just kind of killing anybody that he comes across. Because I feel like you could say the same thing for other killers as well. You know?
Yeah, but for me, the sibling and the family element elevated the Halloween franchise, because Jason killed you if you stepped in his territory. Didn't matter who you were. There was like,
Yeah.
you're in Crystal Lake, you died. With Freddy, if you were part of the Elm Street, if you were a kid of the Elm Street people who burned him, you died. If you were a kid at Elm Street and you dreamed, you died. With Hellraiser, if you touched the box, you died. With Chucky, if you got in his way to get the soul to swap his body, you died. But with Michael, he had like a clear, like, I have to take out my entire family, which is more realistic because you do have serial killers who kill their family. You have people they're called like family annihilators, who take out their entire family or entire family. So it was more, it had a
Familicide.
somewhat, yeah, it had a whole like more realistic touch. Well, if you take out the whole superhuman and cult of thorny crap, because either way you swing it, Dr. Loomis and Michael still survived the explosion in part two.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about that. Actually, we could talk about that now as we jump into our favorite scenes or plot points of this movie. You wanna start off?
Yeah, of course. So just from the beginning, with the nurse, the OG nurse from the first two movies,
Nurse
uh,
Marion Chambers.
Chambers, yeah, and she's one thing I noticed this time around watching the movie, and she's with what's his name? What's it? Just Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and she's just there like pounding on her cigarette, just like in the original two, which I thought was
Yeah,
was a
he
nice
made a
callback.
comment. He was like, has anyone told you that cigarette kills? And she was like,
Yeah, but they're all dead.
Yeah, the nurse is sassy as fuck. Uh but that whole sequence, okay, so I remember watching that sequence of Joseph Gordon-Levitt like looking around at her house, kind of just making sure that nobody was in there. I remember seeing that part on TV So the movie must have been airing on TV at some point, and this is like 10, 15 years ago. And I remembered really wanting to change the channel after you saw Michael in the background as Joseph Gordon-Levitt is like going towards the kitchen or something. And I was like, oh hell no, Michael Myers, oh hell no, I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. Uh, but yeah, I think that intro sets up everything perfectly, sets up the rest of the movie perfectly. Nurse Chambers fights back, which I thought was awesome. I think
Yeah,
she died.
the actress mentioned that in the documentary. She was like I was happy that I was able to kick his ass a bit and that just didn't like go down without a fight.
Yeah, she definitely she fought. She died with honor and dignity, and definitely one of the people that actually fought against Michael and did a better job than other people. Uh, and I know that you were mentioning about this earlier, but then we kind of move into the intro sequence, and we get the voiceover of a fake Loomis. What did you think about that?
It doesn't sound anything like him, like at all. And I watched the documentary about the making of, and they got the actor who's a great voice actor. He is, but he doesn't sound anything close to Dr. Loomis. And they had to use a voice actor because they originally wanted to use like the OG like audio, but they couldn't find it raw. They only had the mixed version with the music and everything from the movie, so they had to recreate it. And they, for some reason, they didn't want him to like watch or listen to anything of Donald, so they just had like Donald Pleasant's best friend come to the studio, and
Hmm.
they're like, it took him like 40 to 50 takes before the guy was like, that's the one. And for me, that wasn't the one because he doesn't sound anything like remotely close. They
Yeah,
should have just dropped it out. They should
yeah.
just left it completely out. It was
Now, one thing
bad.
I will say, I actually thought it was fine. I wasn't as butthurt about it. With regards to the voiceover, what I will say, and I don't know if you've read upon this. I'm pretty sure you did, but I know that there's something called the work cut for this movie, and so that intro sequence is a little different in the alternative version that I saw. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. The work print.
I have no clue.
It's slightly different. I'm surprised you haven't. They didn't mention it in the documentary.
In the documentary, they talked about how you can find alternative versions of certain scenes throughout the movie.
Hmm.
So I probably missed it because even if you watch the movie, which we'll get into later, but if you watch the movie, you definitely see in certain scenes the mask is different.
Yes. Uh huh.
Yeah, because they shot the movie, half the movie with one mask, and then had to go and reshoot like a lot of close up scenes. So like all the scenes from a distance is the original mask, which I think actually looked better. And then like the close ups were a different mask.
Hmm.
So it's probably one of those. And I probably just have no idea because I know the original mask was used to film Marion Chambers' opening sequence, but I don't know if anything else was added. What else was added? What else? What did I miss?
Um. So with regards to the intro sequence, um, so you know how they play the song, but it's like orchestra version of the Halloween theme, and then you're kind of going through Marion Chambers' room, and she has a bunch of newspapers and stuff
With
on
all the
there
files and stuff from
with all the
Loomis?
files and stuff, and it's essentially the same, but in the work cut version, um, they use the original theme, which I think makes it just a little bit more scarier. And then there's an extra line. There's an extra line that the voice actor for Loomis says that doesn't show up in the original version. Uh, and basically, he just says after he says the whole I met him 15 years ago, and I was told there was nothing left, no reason, no conscience, no understanding. After all that is done, at the end he says he's already killed one sister, and tonight he's going to kill the other. And I think they should have kept that. I'll show you after we finish recording. I'll send you a link to it. But um, from what I saw on Wikipedia, the work cut was gonna be it's very similar to the to the theatrical version, but I do think from what I was reading, I did see that the work cut was trying to go for a little bit more darker than the version that we got. Um, I never seen like the full work cut version. All I've seen was
Well,
the
I just
intro.
looked it up, and I'm on Screen Rant, and apparently they were originally going to introduce and then also kill Dr. Loomis's daughter. Because I do know from watching documentary that the whole opening sequence, from like the entire opening sequence, was written down, but it was with a different nurse. Marion Chambers
Oh,
wasn't always attached. That came in later due to Jamie Lee Curtis. But I know
yeah.
that yeah, so that didn't really change much. So this probably was meant to be Dr. Loomis's daughter. But I don't see. I'm looking, but I'll look into it. Yeah, you should send me that afterwards. Do you have any more like scenes or plot points?
That's the only thing I've seen was the intro and just that extra line of dialogue that Loomis says. Because I'm pretty sure he never said that in like the original two movies, so that was just something that they like added. But I thought it was cool. Just kind of tying it back.
He said it. He said it in the second movie when they were in the car. See, when Miriam told him about the secret file that confirmed that Laurie was Michael's sister, he said, "Don't you see
Ah,
what's going on tonight? He killed one sister 7 years ago. Now he's here to kill the other." But he never said that in the first movie, along with the speech.
oh, okay, okay. So he did okay, but yeah. And I'm sure that we'll get to this later, but obviously, I always love seeing Jamie Lee Curtis kick ass as Laurie Strode, and I'm sure that we'll get to this later, but her whole fight with Michael is very inspiring to me, all right? Her
Well, I
facing
guess I
her.
can talk about my favorite scene then, because that's actually mine. That whole ending scene when she closes the gate and she like smashes the keypad so no one can get back in, and she just stands out and she just screams. But she says that, I'm like, oh, she's about to kick his ass. She's about to kick his ass. So much better than like her fight scene in 2018 gave me like murderous Home Alone vibes, and I felt like it was trying too hard. But this one, I was like, the
Yeah.
adrenaline's pumping. Like she just saw him for the first. That it leads like the whole final act when he is chasing John and his girlfriend, and when Jamie comes to save them, and they see each other for the first time in that
Yes.
circle window. When I tell you, even watching it after like the 20th or 400th time, I was like, oh shit, that's an amazing sequence. And that was on the
Yes.
poster, that was in the trailer, because I actually watched the trailer before I watched the movie, and I was like, that was one of the trailer shots. Like, if I saw that in theaters, like in a trailer in theaters, I would have freaked the fuck out of my seat, because that's the shot that gets you into the movie, that gets you to like, okay, take my money, I'm ready for this.
And it's just so much more powerful because you have that motivation. You have that sibling, that brother sister motivation there that makes it so much more
and they
impactful.
built
That,
and they built it up because she had been seeing like hallucinations of him the entire day
yeah.
because it's Halloween. So when she finally sees him in the flesh, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, compared to Halloween 2018 where they're not related at all. It kind of makes her obsession with Michael kind of awkward, but we'll get to that movie later, but yeah. Uh
And then I want to say also my other one that I liked. I like this scene, but Josh Hartnett, who plays John, his line delivery is kind of funny. But when they're out like outside, and she's telling him to be worried about Michael Myers, like, I need you to
mhm.
be at home, and he's like,
Michael Myers is dead.
I was like, what the I was like, wait, that was bad line delivery, but I I got what it was. It was interesting because that's also how Michael finds her because they don't know, but he's watching them the entire time having this conversation, which led back to like what you were talking about in the first movie, how Michael's just driving around off to the side while people were like in the main frame having conversations, and he's just like over there in the car. And I was like, okay, that's a great callback.
Yeah.
I think my other favorite scene is when Laurie's talking to the teacher, who just happens to be Jamie Lee Curtis's real life mom, and they played the Psycho theme because she was the first kill. She's the legendary first kill in Psycho, and they played the thing. That was people don't like it, but they say it's too on the nose. But I was like, when you have Janet Leigh in a horror movie, you that's what you're supposed to fucking do. Like,
Hey, this movie's all about gimmicks, and I'm absolutely in for it. I don't care.
I don't get the hate that it gets now when it was praised. Well, it always had mixed reviews.
Yeah.
But it gets so much flack now. Well, it got flack up until 2018. Because people were starting to see, like, okay, Halloween H2O was great, but it could have done all this stuff better. And then 2018 came out, and it's like, okay, actually, H2O is the best of the two.
Yeah, I think so. For sure.
Worst scene for me was, well, only because you don't see it, but when John's friend gets killed, when Charlie gets killed, it cuts. He has the fucking corkscrew. He gets it,
Oh yeah.
and the whole time I'm thinking, oh my god, he's gonna turn on the fucking switch and he's gonna get like mangled. But no, he just looks up. And then there's Michael Myers, but it's a fucking CGI mask, and it takes you out of the movie, and then just cuts away, and you don't even see him get killed. I'm just like why?
Yeah.
They never even filmed his death scene, according to the documentary.
Oh really? Why is that? Just kind of like time or money?
I think it was they just never filmed it. It was never part of the script. It was always supposed to be his girlfriend finding him out surprise. Well, that's a lie. It wasn't part of the script because it wasn't written, but that's because the character of Charlie morphed through all the different versions of the script. But I'll get into that later because it's part of the whole like original idea of the script and original idea for all the characters and crap. So, but that's just a bad scene. The CGI takes you out.
The CGI mask is definitely. It reminds me. It actually reminds me now that we saw that the TV version of Halloween 2, when Michael goes into Mrs. Elrod's house, and when she turns around and looks at Michael, it's like a still image of him for whatever reason. It's like so it just kind of reminds me of that, just kind of like awkward, like what were they thinking type of things. Because it's like, how hard is it? Why didn't you just put the mask? Isn't there a reason behind that though? Like why they use the CGI mask?
They didn't want to go back to reshoot it, so they just put the CGI mask over it.
But what was the guy not wearing a mask or what?
It was the original mask, and they didn't want to go back to like reset and reshoot it because they had already
they used different masks.
Yeah, there is 2 different masks for the movie. I told you they filmed most of the movie with one particular mask, and then they switched it to another mask because the studio hated one mask, and then the CODs hated the other mask, and then they just came up with something. So yeah, I can send it to you. All right, did you pull it up?
Yeah, I'm actually on Google right now searching.
Yeah, because I did. I googled I just put in Google the three masks of H2O, and they're all right here. Because you can even see like the window scene. There's 2 different masks at that window scene from like stills.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm looking at the masks, and one of them, I think they did a good job with kind of making it look like the original mask. Not even gonna lie.
The one with the slick back hair. Because the one with the slick back is the one they were filming with at first. The one with the messy hair is the one that they ended up changing to.
No, I think the one from the window is the the slicked back hair, right?
There's two. I don't know which one you're looking at.
Well, there's one of them I know for sure that I think is actually pretty decent to the original. Not perfect, but if anyone ever asks me like what my favorite mask is, I just say Halloween 2 because I feel like that's the closest one to the
No,
first
that's the
one.
exact same mask.
I thought,
No, the one in Halloween 2 is the exact same mask from the first one. It's
but it just
just
fits a little different because of Dick Warlock's face.
Dick Warlock had a rounder face, so it
Mm.
just made it look different, but it's actually the exact same mask. I learned that while watching a documentary for this movie because
Oh, nice.
I always thought it was a different mask as well, but it wasn't. It's the same one. The more you know. But I don't know. Is there a scene that I absolutely hated? I don't think there was. To be honest, I don't think there's any. I mean, some of the teenage dialogue is cringy, but most teenage dialogue in horror movies are cringy.
Yeah.
Um,
Josh
and
Hartnett can certainly be a little annoying. I didn't hate his character, but there's moments where he can be
he
annoying. Like,
apparently he like raged war on set because he really wanted his hair to be messy and like fucked up. Because he said he hated watching teen movies and TV shows where the characters were all like done up, pretty, nice hair, perfect this. And he was like, that's not. He's like, I was a year out of high school, and that's not how anyone I knew, including myself, was. So he just like did little things to his hair and stuff to be like, this is how we actually look right now.
mm-hmm.
I just sent you a photo of the mask, so you can see what I'm talking about. The one
Okay.
on the one on the right is the original mask, and the one on the left is the new one.
Oh, okay. So I think the one on the left is a little bit more accurate, but the one on the right kind of gives a more creepy vibe.
It the one on the right, I say I like more, but it has one of the same issues that I had with Halloween 5's mask, where you can see a face and like emotion type. You can see a type of emotion in his face,
Mm-hmm.
where the one on the left is more accurate, where it's just blank.
A
But you
little
can
bit.
actually
It's
you
definitely a
can
little bit
see
more
this.
accurate, but the hairline is way too
Yeah, like
receded too.
Michael's mask is bald, but you can see both of these masks in the movie. In the car scene when she's trying to get the car started, in
Yeah.
the rear view, in the side mirror, when he's walking up, you can see the mask, like the original mask. But when he gets his face to the window and he's looking at her in the car, that's the new mask. When they run out of the building to get to the car, when he's on the stairway and had that wide shot, that's the original mask. But when he
Hmm.
gets closer, it's the new mask. So they did things like that. Anytime it's a close up, it's a reshoot.
Is this? I know because I'm asking because I know that you've seen more of the documentaries than I have. Um, is this like the first movie, like the only movie where they use like two distinctively different masks, or have they been using different masks this entire time in other movies and I haven't?
Well, with Halloween 4 they had different masks, but you only really can tell when it was that one with the white hair. But yeah, this is the first time they had like distinctively different masks because this was a big Hollywood production. So the Weinstein brothers had their input, plus
Oh, true. Yeah.
Mustafa Akkad had their input. So
Yeah, the other
it,
movies do have more of a straight to VHS type of vibe. Whereas this one, watching this one does feel like a much more bigger Hollywood production type of movie.
well, I'll talk about it later, but this was supposed to be a direct to video sequel. But that, of course, that all changed once Jamie Lee was like, "I want to come back." But this was supposed to be direct to DVD, direct to video.
Yeah.
But let's move on from that. Let's talk about. You have any hot takes?
Ooh, hot takes. I mean, I like the movie. I know a lot of people don't like it. I will say though that I'm not too big on Michael's performance in this movie because he does feel like kind of dumb at times. Like his movement, it's not the shape. It's definitely not like even close to like the shape it does feel more of just like a brunt guy chasing people down in this movie. Is that would you agree with that, or do you think that he made like a
Totally. It was a different take on what we got used to with Michael.
yeah? Because there's a part where they're chasing where Michael's chasing Laurie, and he like stabs I mean, like, Laurie blocks one of his stabs, and, like, it's like a wooden thing, and he's just, like, waving around the knife, like, almost comical, and I was like, I mean, I laugh, but it's like, that isn't the shape. So, probably one of the weaker versions of the shape, in my opinion. But I still like the movie, but
Well, for me, well, a hot take also ties into like I will actually have two scenes I hate. My first hot take is I actually like LL Cool J's character in this movie. I think he's the much needed comic relief that we need in a horror movie, and I liked his little subplot with him trying to be like a romance novelist. I mean, I prefer what they did with
oh,
LL Cool
yeah.
J. Yeah, I prefer what they did with LL Cool J in this movie rather than what happens in the later movie with Busta Rhymes. I'll just leave that there. But I
Mhm.
enjoyed him. But my hot take is that I hated when he was just like randomly shot for no fucking reason.
Yeah.
You shoot the one black character in this movie and then leave him out for the entire climax? Like, what the fuck? And then my other hot take is during that same sequence when she puts John and his girlfriend in the closet and she comes back and she's looking for Michael in the hallway and he just like lifts himself down from that pole with one arm. Like, how the fuck did you get up there?
Yeah. If I have any other hot takes. Uh, well, actually, I guess this whole movie exists on the premise that in Halloween 2, Loomis survived. Do you think that Loomis should have stayed dead? Or do you think it was totally fine, kind of like fan service that technically in this storyline Loomis survived that
You
whole
know,
explosion
you know
and
what? Watching this movie this time around, I had like a weird connect. I was getting weird like connections to Thor 3, where
Thor?
you remember his sister, Helena. She couldn't come back until their dad Odin died,
Mhm.
and a few months after Dr. Loomis dies, that's when Michael finally comes back to like hunt down Laurie.
Ah, true.
Because if he always knew where Dr. Loomis was at, why didn't he just ever just go to like kill them and then
Yeah.
go get the information? But that kind of also goes back to what you were saying in 4 and 5, well, and 6, that Michael never mortally wounded Dr. Loomis. Like Loomis
Yeah.
survived that explosion. He died of like old age and like poor health in between 3 and H2O. And
And
this is when Michael comes.
presumably he was very old and weak, right? So like that could have been an easy kill for
Yep,
Michael, but
but Michael would never. I mean, he was old and weak in part 6, and that nothing happened. But
yeah.
part 6 doesn't exist. But then you have how was Michael able to see when his eyes were shot out in part 2? Did they regenerate over 20 years? Like, what the
Oh
fuck?
yeah.
I
Dude, I
doubt he
completely
has
forgot
money
about
for.
that.
I doubt he has money for eye transplant. But this is also like the late '90s. There was no such thing as
And
an
it's
eye
funny how
transplant.
nobody asks, like not even Lori asks, like not even she like questions herself, like, wait, how the fuck how are you still able to see, my guy? I literally
You have any? Well, I want to talk about a few characters, starting off with Laurie Strode slash Carrie Tate. I definitely liked her portrayal of. See, in H2O and not H2O in 2018, she was completely ruined and overcome by the events of the first movie. But in this one, she somehow, well, in both of them, she had a family, got married, had a bad marriage, but she's with her son. She's taking care of him. She's overprotective as someone who survived trauma would be. So I
Mm.
respected that, and then it just seemed more realistic. Like she wasn't completely destroyed. What about you? What do you think?
I like post Halloween 1, Halloween 2, I like this version of Laurie, like 20 years after the events of the first few films, more than the one from 2018. That's for sure. I think because she obviously had a lot of PTSD from the events of the earlier movies, but I still feel like she behaved like a normal person and she was trying to get better. Uh, and she wasn't like this huntsman survivalist, like from like 2018. Look, isn't it funny how Laurie from survives two Halloween movies and she still turns out a little bit more normal than Laurie from 2018, who only went through the events once and that was it, and somehow that traumatizes her even more. Uh, yeah.
Unlike, yeah,
So I think that this version of Laurie, I think, is more likable, but also more likable and relatable because I think people can also relate to like her struggles that she's having, which is PTSD or facing her demons. She has a lot of fear of Michael coming back. Um, but she's trying to get better. She has a son in this movie, so wants to protect him, but also doesn't want to be too overprotective. Um, and just that ending, man. Just her like being like, "Fuck this, dude! I'm killing you, Michael. I don't give a fuck," and like hunting him down and shit, dude. It's so awesome. It's so
when
beautiful.
she's like right there at the ambulance,
Buenísimo.
and oh, she was just like, he was reaching his hand out at her, and then she just swung the axe and just walked away and cue the theme. Badass moment right there. But since you mentioned her son, John Tate, what'd you think about him?
So this was prime Josh Hartnett, right? That was.
This is start Josh Hartnett. Because this wasn't his first film role that he got, but I'm not. Let me check. I do know I think the Faculty came out first, so this was like at the start because he was actually filming the Faculty and Halloween at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Because he got cast on the Faculty, but the Weinsteins wanted him to come and read with Jamie Lee Curtis for this movie, so he was filming both like at the same time. He was doing double duty.
Ah. I think he certainly got a lot less annoying as stuff was happening as he realized like Michael was at the school. Um, I do think it was a little bit mean for him to be like pranking his mom and stuff. I don't know. What are your feelings towards him? Because you've probably seen a lot more movies about him than I have.
I like Josh Hartnett. He has a certain acting style. He acts. He's always acted like Harrison Ford acts now. Like his entire, like Josh Hartnett's entire acting career, he's been giving like the same performance Harrison Ford's been giving for the last like 15 years of just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm Harrison Ford. I'm in this movie. I'm gonna do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give these dry ass line performances. Like that's kind
Yeah.
of what I've always got from Josh Hartnett. So I guess I just got used to his style. But the character of John he was annoying as fuck because I'm like, your mom has had a traumatic experience. One night of her life, her best friends plus one of their boyfriends dead. This guy stalked everyone in the hospital she was at and killed them. Like she's traumatized because he tried to kill her, but also people around her are dying simply because they're around her. Like I'd be fucked up too. I don't care how long it's been.
Yeah.
Like give her a break. She's trying to keep you safe, you idiot.
Yeah,
And
and
then
he's
by the
like,
time he
"But I want to go to
realizes
the
it,
school trip. I want to go to the school trip. Come on."
and by the time he realizes it, it's his friends are dead. I'm just like, bruh, it's too late now.
Yeah.
I just wish there was a follow up with him because we never see him again after this movie,
Yeah,
or
we
a
don't even see him
mention.
in Resurrection either, right?
Not
So.
even a fucking picture. I think. Um, what about was going to talk about his girlfriend because for
Michelle
some reason
Williams.
and she played Molly Cartwell, but because for some reason they gave her all of Laurie's character beats from the first
Moments.
movie,
Yeah.
and she was completely insignificant. Like
Mm-hmm.
overall, she was literally just John's girlfriend. I got nothing.
Which
What
is
about
a
you?
shame because she's a very talented actress. As she's been in a lot of movies now. So the tables have turned. Now she's more famous than Josh Hartnett, I'd say. Uh, but yeah, just like you said, she's kind of just relegated to like the opposite of like the final girl. But like Josh Hartnett is like, well, he's not even the final guy, but the significant other of an important character, which would be Laurie Strode, son. So it's a shame that you don't get to see too much of her. Uh, she's always just kind of in the background.
She
So
doesn't even get wounded.
I think she might hurt her ankle. I think the first time that they encounter Michael, I think. Oh no! The only time to get any interaction was like he's like tugging at her ankle or something. Uh, before they can make it up to the room, the building where Laurie's at.
Oh yeah.
But other than
Well,
that,
we
yeah.
already talked about LL Cool J's Ronnie, so let's go straight to Adam Han Bird, who played Charlie Devereaux.
It's harmless and
What
expected.
did you think about Charlie, who was John's best friend?
Oh, was he the guy who's the boyfriend of the girl from She's All That? Insignificant.
That's
Insignificant.
that's you know what I thought I was thinking the same, and then watching a documentary and learning what they were gonna do with his character, I was like, what the fuck? Originally, well, in original script, they were gonna keep the whole like boarding school thing, all of that. That was always a part of it. It changed over time because then they had to incorporate Laurie Strode into the plot of the. It's supposed to be all girls school, and John was still going to be there, but he was going to be annoyed that he wanted to go to the all boys school down the road, but she was like no. But the whole thing with Charlie was Charlie was supposed to be a copycat. He was supposed to be in the Michael Myers getup, killing people and stalking people, and trying to attack trying to attack Laurie. But then it was supposed to flip on him because then
The real Michael.
there's supposed to be a lot of murders going on, and you're supposed to think it's all Charlie at the end doing a big reveal, but then you find out that Mike was there too, and he kills Charlie because he's pissed off that Charlie is like
Yeah.
impersonating him, and then he proceeds to go and kill or have his final battle with Laurie. Which I can see why they scrapped it, but I was like, this character is supposed to have so much more importance. And the actor was like, I got the script. One day I was supposed to be Michael Myers. A week later, I get a call. They're like, yeah, we're scrapping all that, but we want you in the movie still. So
Damn,
that's
that's
why
a
dev
bummer.
scene.
Talk
That's
about a
why the devs
downgrade.
complete downgrade. Like you went from being the killer to being one of the killers to relegated to the horny best friend who barely had any scenes. Didn't even get a death scene. Like what the
Well, he
fuck?
did do one thing in the movie. I think he like didn't turn in his homework, so that meant
On purpose.
yeah, on
He
purpose.
purposely did that so because he wanted to stay back with his friends.
Yeah. Oh, big mistake, my guy. Big fucking mistake.
And what about? Well, we already talked about how much you didn't like it, but what did you think of Chris Durand as Michael Myers?
Yeah. You know what? This Michael Myers kind of felt like if that Charlie guy was Michael Myers, because, like I said, it was just a very sloppy performance, in my opinion. Not like a threatening presence where like he looks at you and it's like it's over, you're dead. Um, I won't
Well,
let that bother me when it comes to the beatdown scene with like Laurie like stabbing the shit out of him because I still think that's an important moment, an
in
important
his
character.
words, he was portrayed as a cat locked on his prey.
A cat locked in his prey? Hell no, that was no cat. That was no cat.
That's what his words from a documentary. He was a cat locked onto the prey. I was like, okay, if that's what you want to go with, sir.
I mean, even going back to that one scene earlier on in the movie where he like takes that girl's car from the bathroom, and like the girl like you know what scene I'm referring to, right? Before, when he's getting to the school, but yes,
The bathroom scene.
the bathroom scene, and the girl's like kind of like looking through the between of like the middle of the door in the bathroom, and you could see him, and then he like just kind of turns around funnily, looks at her, and then he just kind of walks away. But it didn't give off that creepy vibe that even like the Michael Myers from like 2018 gave. So yeah, if anything, this just feels more like a copycat Michael Myers to me more than,
Lackluster.
yeah, just sloppy, just sloppy. Well, Charlie's girlfriend, which is the girl that I keep saying from She's All That. Damn,
Jodie
her
O'Keefe.
her injury is gruesome. Like,
Her when they find her body, awesome.
yeah.
In a documentary, the actress actually hurt herself. She did not know. She had like a bad cut on her leg, so bad that her pants were like drenched in blood, but she didn't realize it until she got back to her hotel.
Mhm.
And the receptions at the hotel was like, "No, you're bleeding." She's like, "Oh no, it's fake blood." Like she was showing her hand. It's like it's all fish. Like no, like your leg is like your pants leg is covered in blood. She was like, "I didn't even fucking feel it because the adrenaline
Damn. Could have cut her artery or something.
could have died for blood loss."
Loki could have
Um,
died.
but I think that's all the characters. But a little background information. I gave a little bit already, but this movie actually had the biggest budget of the original Halloween run. It had a budget of $17 million. But according to Jamie Lee Curtis, that was a basic budget. It does for a horror movie. I was like, what?
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I guess cool if you say so. If that wasn't enough. But because the highest budget that the franchise had was 5 million, and that was for Halloween 4, 5, and 6. They all had a budget of 5 million. So
Mhm.
this one had a big studio budget of 17 million. Actually, that I'm looking at the stats right now.
Yeah, 3 times that number, huh?
Yeah, but looking at the information now, H2O has the biggest budget of the entire franchise. Even that's including 2018.
Oh, damn, really?
Yeah.
These
That's
movies do
interesting.
try do strive uh on that low budget feel, practical effects sort
Yeah.
of thing.
The
But
more they have to be scrappy, the better it is. But yeah, but they brought back 75 million in the box office,
good.
making this one of the most like successful. This was like the successful film in the franchise at the time, up until the Halloween remake in '07.
Mhm.
This was the biggest one. Uh, the original idea for this movie, which was going to be titled Halloween, well, it was going to be Halloween Sevens. If the director from the last one was going to come back,
From
um,
Curse of Michael Myers.
hmm
Oh, hell no.
he submitted a draft called Michael Myers, Lord of the Dead, and the story would have opened immediately after the events of the previous film and involved Tommy Doyle discovering that the entire town of Haddonfield was involved with the conspiracy. So the whole town was in on it.
That would make sense.
Kind of like, well, Farron's compared it to the Wicker Man. If you ever seen the Wicker Man,
No, but I've seen kind of like discussions about it. Like,
well, yeah, the Wicker Man is that a, this person goes missing and well, there's a murder or something, and they get a detective to come in,
and like all the
like a
townspeople
who's
are acting really weird, right? And
yeah, man. At the end, you find out that they're all a part of this ritual, and they have to sacrifice somebody, and they set up this whole ruse to get the detective to come. So
mhm,
that's what he kind of wanted to do, but they're like, no, we don't want that.
that's
And
way
then
too complicated.
another idea was another pitch called Halloween 7, the two faces of evil. This was going to be a direct to video. It would have been it would have been what I told you, that Michael Myers was stalking the all girls boarding school, and then the plot was going to be revealed that was a copycat killer, aka Charlie.
Mm.
But that didn't go through. But they changed the pitch a couple times, changed the title to Halloween Blood Ties when they added Laurie to the story, but then they scrap it all together, but still kept like several elements of that
Halloween
script.
Blood Ties, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So they're like, yeah, we're not going to use that script, but we want to use certain elements. So they told the writer to like come up with something. He got with Kevin Williams. Kevin Williams tweaked a lot, made it to what it is, and then they got the director Steve Miner to be the director, who directed Friday the 13th part 2 and part 3. We already mentioned that they had 2 different masks, and they can all be seen on screen, including the bad CGI mask. The critics, critic reaction. This was a mixed review. I couldn't really find that many reviews, but they're mostly positive. Halloween H20 holds an approval rating of 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's all we got.
I just like to say that I was watching some Halloween H2O related video. It must have been one of the scenes from the movie. I don't remember what. But then I was looking in the comments and I just saw one comment read, "Oh, it must have been the ending then." Where Laurie chops Michael's head off, because someone in the comments wrote something along, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like, "Oh, I was at the opening night screening watching this, and everyone was cheering when Laurie cut Michael's head off." So just imagine seeing this movie at that time with the hardcore fans in the theater, and
that's what everyone said on the documentary. They're like, that was the best part of the film. Like, I'm telling you, when she chops his head off and she just walks away, even though I know it's coming, I still get so like fucking pumped when I see it. I'm just like, ugh. But knowing what's in store. Okay, but we won't get to that. So before we close it off, what's your review and final thoughts on Halloween H2O?
I think every horror fan, every Halloween fan should definitely watch this movie. I definitely recommend it. It's certainly one of my favorites. Like I said, my perfect headcanon for this franchise, my perfect timeline is 1, 2, and 20 years later. Because I think Laurie has a really good performance in this. Laurie really just kind of carries this movie, doesn't she? Just kind of shows you how good. Uh, I almost forgot her name. What's her name again?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis. There you go. Just shows you how much this role is Jamie Lee Curtis, really. Like, I can't see any other Laurie Strode other than her. And yeah, just kind of like the autumn vibe. I guess another question. I know, just another question. Like, this movie was filmed in California. Like the setting is California. I know it's different from Haddonfield. Do you, as a more hardcore Halloween fan, how did you feel about that?
It made sense. She faked her death. So she faked her death. She wouldn't stay in Illinois. She literally got hours upon hours away.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if you thought about, like, even if to her, if Mike was still alive, there's only one way he can get to her, and that's if he drove. Because there's no way, even back then in the 90s where airplane travel was loose, there was no way in hell he was going to be able to get on a plane. So
Yeah, that's true.
he doesn't even got money. So yeah, for me, she should have went to a different fucking country. But I definitely get, like, you faked your death. You can't stay in your hometown or even close to your hometown if you're faking your death and changing your name. Illinois is big, but a lot of people from Illinois do travel to Chicago. So even if she came to Chicago,
That's true.
there's a big chance someone will just like bump into her one day. So it's just,
Hmm.
I was okay with it. And finally, they didn't have to hide the fucking palm trees anymore. That's actually set in California.
Yeah. True. Yeah, but overall, in terms of like review score, I think a solid. Okay, so the fanboy in me wants to say 4, like a 4 out of 5. I just have a lot of fun with this movie. But kind of more critically, maybe like a 3 stars out of 5, I guess. To be kind of more conservative, because I know some people will watch this movie and not like it, but I like it. All right, so yeah, my personal score would be like 3.5 out of 10. Yeah.
My score overall is a 4 because if you look at it as like a trilogy from part 1, part 2, and then H2O, it wraps it up greatly. And I'm only judging this based off those 3 movies. I'm not even thinking about what's coming up next. And I think it tied together the story like nicely. And if H2O was the last movie in this franchise, I would have been satisfied, especially with that like epic ass ending.
Yeah.
So Jamie made sense. Her relationship with her son made sense. Her lack of relationship with her boyfriend, who we didn't even talk about because he was pretty like insignificant to the plot. He was just there.
Yeah.
I liked the comedy bits with LL Cool J. I wish the lighting was different.
Mhm.
I wish there was more consistency with the mask. I wish there was more. I wish Mike, the actor who played Michael, was more in tune with. I mean, because even with the Michaels I didn't like, they still had the same. They kind of had the walk and all that like down packed from Dick Warlock. So
More in tune with the shape, and because this one just felt more like a copycat.
the atmosphere was nice. The setting. I was definitely scared in some moments, even though I've seen the movie several times.
Mhm.
So for me, it gets a 4. Just a 4, no 4.5. Just a simple 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Doesn't get a 5 because it's missing something. Don't quite know what that is, but it's missing something.
Mhm.
So that's my score. This was a pretty good movie. I enjoyed going back. What I'm not going to enjoy is the movie that we're going to be watching next week, which is Halloween
Oh God,
Resurrection.
no.
Came out in 2002. And to be honest, I'm saying this right now, of all of the Halloween movies, Resurrection is the most dated. But we'll get into that next week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Haddonfield Horrors Podcast. The Haddonfield Horrors Podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?